Hello and welcome to another episode of Casting Views, the podcast that takes a topic each week and, as the name suggests, cast views. This week's episode is another in the Mindwipe series, and I've got a first-time guest on the show, so I'm going to introduce and say hello to Marie from Two Girls, One Reusable Cup. Hello there.
Hello. No, very excited to be here.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this. So firstly, I'm using a recording app for this for the first time. So, why not throw a spanner in the works right at the last minute? But also, I was thinking, I feel quite bad now because I've got you on for one of these episodes, which are quite analytical. I think Slade from Game Club Pod, he was exhausted at the end of it. He felt he was psychoanalyzed. So yeah, I thought what a great introduction to my listeners and to you on this podcast is probably one of the more interesting podcasts. But hopefully you're looking forward to it.
No, I am actually really looking forward to this. It's because my podcast is quite niche, so I don't get to talk about this stuff at all. And so I feel like I always am put into a bit of a box when it comes to my podcast. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm being psychoanalyzed. I feel like I can show myself. Although, oh, no, yeah,
We'll see.
we'll see.
And I should also shout it out. This is a PodPack Collective collaboration because you're a member of that fine group as well. And there's been various things we've discussed in there. So I don't want to say anything just yet in case they come up in your chat. So that's another thing that I'm finding difficult with the introduction. That was the beauty of choosing a general topic podcast is it sounds brilliant in the sense you could talk about anything, but sometimes that can feel too wide. But then what I do love the opportunity is to get people that do, like yourself, have got niche podcasts and just do something completely different and completely random to normal. So I've said to you before we started, I do want to talk a little bit about your podcast and give yourself a chance to introduce. I will get you definitely back for a dinner party one where we go in a bit more depth, but I've given you, again, slightly unfair on you, I've given you a few more subjects than I've given to other people. And so I think what we'll do, we'll get stuck in. But yeah, do you just want to introduce yourself and your podcast and tell people where they can get you?
I always do such a bad job at this when I'm on someone else's podcast. So I'm Marie. I am the co-host of the Two Girls, One Reusable Cup podcast. It is a podcast all about living a low-waste lifestyle in your 20s. So we cover a variety of topics linked to sustainability. We did one on smartphones. We just did one on palm oil. There's quite a few about the fast fashion industry because that is my background. And the idea of the podcast is the average consumer trying to make the best choices for people and planet.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about your podcast is because, as you said, you are just trying to be the regular person, and that's what it is. And we were discussing in our chat the other days about how people are often punished, or it feels like people are punishing to try to do the right thing. Whereas your podcast, as you said, appealed to the regular person, but also like the plant oil one you said yourself is the most recent one at time recording. That's fascinating in terms of you think you know things, but when you start digging in and listening to that podcast, yeah, there's some real revelations. It's a fascinating podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I do my best. Neither me and my co-host work in the field of climate change or sustainability. So we very much are self-taught in this subject. So that's how I approach each subject, like trying to teach it with fresh eyes, because I myself didn't know anything about this before I started researching it.
Yeah, and I mean, most podcasts are, but this one's definitely got to be a passion project, isn't it?
Saving the environment is definitely a passion for mine. Some might argue my entire personality, but yes, it is, and I really enjoy it. And maybe this is why this is not so daunting to me. I am a very analytical person. I like going down the rabbit hole. I like picking a random topic and seeing how much I can find out about it. And luckily, I have a friend who's interested enough in learning all this. So we thought, hey, maybe if she's interested in it, maybe we could open it up to the public and do a podcast this style.
I think you're on all the platforms, aren't you?
Oh, yes. See, this is why I'm so bad at this. Yes, we are.
I'm the same. I'm honestly, I'm the same.
Yes, you can find us on all major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're also on YouTube, and then you can connect with us on our social media. We are on Twitter and Instagram at Two Girls, One Reusable Cup.
Yeah, and definitely check out the socials because you've got a good line in baking as well, don't you? You do a fair amount of baking on there.
Yes, I recently did Veganuary for the first time, so there's quite a lot of food content, especially on Twitter. That's where I shared most of it. And both of us, me and my co-host, have connected with the love that we have for food.
Oh, excellent. And that's more all the more for getting you back for the dinner party one because
Yes.
yeah. And it's just a chance for me to get, I keep saying it, a chance for me to get new recipes in my rotation. So yeah, the Casting Views cookbook out at the end of the year. Right. So we are going to hear a trailer and we're actually going to hear your trailer. So sit back and let's hear it.
Hello, we are Two Girls, One Reusable Cup, a podcast all about living a low-waste lifestyle in your 20s, hosted by Beth and Marie. We are just your average consumer trying to make the best decisions for people and planet. And we mess up. A lot.
And the next morning had a massive hangover and I was like, where's my reusable straw? No, my prized possession.
You know, toothpaste is like one of the jumping off points of this podcast, and it also was one of the jumping off points of my very large dentist bill.
And they put it in just standard plastic cup with a plastic lid. But don't worry, folks, they put a paper straw in it, which I think I slurped twice and then it disintegrated.
Wait, you've never learned how to ride a bike?
So kudos to my dad, he tried to teach me and I was just a pain. I love how unforgiving you are of the fact that this was 1,800 meters above sea level. But where was my quiche?
Grab a cup of tea, sit down with us, and come and join the Sustainable Support Group.
Okay, we are back. So again, thank you for being on here for the first time. Mindwipe, this will be the third episode now, I think, of this. So just if you're listening and you haven't heard this before, so I get someone on and I'm going to give them a variety of subjects and say, right, if you could relive three things, so if we say TV shows, if you could forget and relive three shows again for the first time, what would they be and why? And more importantly, the caveat is you will relive them and have the same enjoyment you had the first time and you still do now, because I keep saying sort of some music and some games or some TV shows get dated, but you will enjoy it and you want to get that feeling you had that first time. I have got a long list here, so I'm going to start with books. So 1 to 3 books that you'd like to forget and relive again.
This was so hard for me. And I kept like trying to remember the whole concept of this. It's like not my favorite books. It's the ones that like I want to experience again, but also very special because I don't normally get to talk about books. So I love that the chance I get to gush about books. So I've got 3, some honorable mentions, but we'll stick to the 3. So I'll go through them like one by one, to build suspense. So the first one that I chose is a book called The Lies of Locke Lamora, which is the first book in the Gentleman Bastard series. I read this for the first time now, I think about 3 years ago, and this was my first step into dark fantasy. I've always been a fan of fantasy, but it's always been young adult for me. Young adult is my bread and butter. It is my comfort genre. And I didn't actually realize there was such a thing as adult fantasy, which was kind of stupid of me, but because I always thought, fantasy for kids. So this one was my first time ever reading dark fantasy. And I chose this one in particular because it was like a genre I was technically not familiar with. And it was recommended to me by a booktuber that I trust and liked their recommendations before. So I thought I'd give it a go. I went into it not knowing anything much about it, except the fact that you kind of have to pay attention. It's a bit of a slow beginning. And as I'm reading this, maybe the plot first. Because the story is about it's a dark Oliver Twist. It's an Oliver Twist taking place in this dark fantasy world. It's about orphans and thieves. And so it starts quite normal as a heist book. And then a third way of the book, it just pulls the rug out from under you and genuinely feel like you've been stabbed. It's one of those, oh my god, what
Yeah.
the fuck just happened moments. And it's weird that I want to say I want to relive that pain again, but it was just so surprising. And I absolutely now adore this book, and I adore the series. There are 3 currently out. It is now one of my favorite series, but because this one was my introduction, it is just so powerful, and the characters are lovable. This world is gorgeous, but like the plot beats, it just, once shit hits the fan, it just keeps hitting the fan. And it's one of those where you generally don't know who's going to come out alive.
So when did you read that? Is that a fairly recent thing, or?
The book series itself is actually fairly recent. I mean, the most recent one I think just came out like 3 years ago. So, and I first read it like 3 years ago.
Okay.
I went through like a reading slump for a very, very long time where I would just read like one book a year. And this was like the second one I read when I was coming out of my reading slump. So that's why also it's like I remember it very special, because not on the list, but I read Dune, and then I realized how much I loved reading. And then I picked this up and realized there are so many genres that I haven't explored yet.
I was actually going to ask, and I think you said it there. Are you a reader?
I love stories. I love books, but only in the recent years. I had one series, and I think this was everyone's favorite series that they had from childhood, but now because of
Okay, yeah.
yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Basically, it was almost like recovering from a breakup. So I had to
Yeah.
find something new and something that I loved. So I started reading all sorts of different genres. So this one was like one of these ones that I picked up where I was just like, oh my god, this is a book. This is like incredible.
Yeah.
And also like hoping a TV adaptation will come, because this will be perfect for like a small mini series.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like everything's being adapted to TV, so why not that? And it's interesting what you said. So I used to be a reader. I love reading, but in recent years, and especially since the podcast, I tend not to read as much, and that is a shame. It's interesting what you said about why would you, some people may find it strange to relive something where it's like a punch to the gut. Those are the books I like most. Like if I'm watching TV or films, like, yeah, I do like a comedy, but books, it is those thrillers. It's those dark, it's those dramatic books that really draw me in. And I think there's something about books that makes them more appealing to me anyway.
I mean, my recommendation is, if you've very much into reading, is audiobooks. Like this one was an audiobook. I first experienced it as an audiobook, and there's always the like gatekeeping of the reading community that audiobooks don't count as reading, and I'm like, I completely disagree with that.
Yeah.
So the audiobook for this is absolutely fabulous. And so yeah, that was my one recommendation. If you find it difficult to pick up a book, start an audiobook.
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends who do that. Yeah, I really should do, because it makes a commute more interesting, I guess. Yeah.
So that was just one book.
Yeah. Okay, so that's number. And sorry, do you just want to say that again and just say the name again of that, please? Sorry.
Oh, it was The Lies of Loch Lamora. It's the first book in the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch.
Okay, cool. Excellent. So number 2.
Number 2 is a book. It came out during the pandemic. It's a book called Raybearer. This one is back to my comfort genre. I would call it young adult. It takes place in a fantasy Africa. And once again, even though I was familiar with the genre, I was not familiar with the setting. And it is such a beautiful book. And I almost don't want to like say anything about the plot, because it's one of those ones where you should go in not knowing anything about it. Just the fact that it's absolutely gorgeous. The first half of it feels like a fairy tale. It is like super cozy. That's why I want to relive it. When I remember reading it, I just felt so cozy. These characters, because it follows one main character, but it's very much an ensemble cast, and all these characters are just so great. I mean, the way I describe it, but this is also a very niche series. Have you ever watched Sense8 on Netflix?
Do you know what? I haven't got around to seeing that. No.
Might be a good one once you finish Black Mirror, but
Yes. Yeah.
it's about connection and human connection. And what I love about this book is like all the different iterations of love and representation. There's
Mhm.
an ace character in it, which of course I love. But not just that, there's like polyamorous representation, but there's platonic love. Like there's such an emphasis of platonic love in this book, and it's almost become one of the pet peeves of mine that platonic love is so like underrepresented in media, like how
Mm.
important it is to have platonic love. So this is why I love this book so much. It's just like the theme of this book is love and just the different types of love, but then it also takes place in this amazing fantasy world,
Right.
and there is like a very fantasy plot to this. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very good book, and it's a very short book. I would recommend it, and because it's young adult, you can read it like, I think I read it within like 3 days, but
Wow.
it's a super cozy read. But there are also some plot twists in it, which is great for like experiencing it again one more time. It's like,
So definitely, again, you're kind of carrying on the theme, like you said, about the dramatic or the fantasy / dramatic. And so again, is that a recent book for you or recent experience?
yes, very recent. I think I read this like 2 books after I read Loch Lamora. So this is a very recent read. Nearly everyone all the ones that I had on this list were almost recent reads, because I've been almost falling back in love with reading and just discovering new authors. And I make it a point of reading books by minorities and people who are underrepresented in society. So, and a lot of those are just new books that came out recently. So that's why like nearly all the books that I've read have just come out in like the last 5 years.
A random question that's hit me as well. So I said the same thing to Slade when he was on. So when I'm into reading, I'll read. I do like you. I like to try different authors. If I find one I love, I then almost want to. I have to read all their books. It's almost like I have to get them all. Is that the same for you?
Yes, I'm well, definitely like that with a series. Like once I start a series, I have to completely finish the series. But I am one of those people who like does read like 3 books at a time. So I'm like always like
Right. Yeah.
flipping stuff. I usually have an audiobook going, a physical book going, and then like a nonfiction book going. So I do experience that, but then sometimes it really depends on the series. Like for example, in the last few years, I read the Wheel of Time books, but that's 14 books. It
Yeah.
took me like 3 years to get through that, and I had to take breaks in between. I think I read
Yeah.
another like 10 book series in between. I read those because I just needed a break. But
Because that's a commitment, isn't it? Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
that series it tests you as a reader, I have to say.
I really as well. Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend that unless you're an avid reader. I wouldn't recommend that series.
Yeah. If you're a novice reader, stay away for now. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Build up to it. Okay. Cool. And what's your third choice?
So my third choice, and I had a lot of books written down for this, but I could not leave out my all-time favorite series, like of all time, and that is the Skullduggery Pleasant series, which is the series basically from like my teenage years. And I'm cheating here because I wrote Skullduggery Pleasant 1, but slash Deathbringer, which is book number 6, because I couldn't choose between both of them. Because I love the first one because it introduces you, of course, to the world, and then the 6th one just is where almost the story comes together. So Skullduggery Pleasant is, all of these books are fantasy. I'm a fantasy sci-fi girly. Fantasy is always gonna be my comfort.
Yeah.
So Skullduggery Pleasant is about a skeleton detective who solves crimes around
Okay.
Dublin.
Sounds intriguing. Yeah.
It is, and it's such an intriguing concept. And where it begins and where it transcends, now it's also, I think, around 14 books. But when I first started the series, there was only 4 out at the time. This is the series that when a new one comes out, I buy it like on the release day.
Right. Yeah.
And I've got nearly when I lived in Ireland, because the author himself, Derek Landy, he's also Irish. So he did quite a lot of book signings in Ireland. So I've got quite a lot of books signed. So I'm just waiting for him to make it big so those books are worth something. He's already good, but he's already quite famous. But once, he does although I don't think I want an adaptation of this, but if the adaptation ever goes through, I know those books will be worth something.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? When you get an adaptation, you always also run the risk of it not being how it is in your head.
I mean, the only way I can see this working is like the series Arcade, if it was animation. Because as I said, the main
Okay, yeah.
character is a skeleton. It's very
Yeah,
difficult to
yeah.
portray that convincingly. And it takes place in a magical Dublin. And that's why I like the series, because this book is very much written for Irish people, like for Irish teenagers.
Right, yeah.
There are so many Easter eggs for Dublin in general. Like, for example, their like headquarters is in the Wax Museum. And the reason that is funny is because like I lived in Ireland for over 10 years. I've never been to the Wax Museum once. And I've only like came across it like accidentally when I got lost in the city center. But that's why it's so funny, because no one in Ireland goes to the Wax Museum. So it would make sense to have a super secret headquarters there
In there.
because no one cares. So it's just those little things. In Deathbringer, the sixth book, there's one like really big revelation that I still like I think about to this day. But there's also like a massive fight scene, and they end up crashing into. Sorry, Luke is currently reading the series. A bit of a spoilers for him.
Oh, this is going out in a couple of months, in about a month, so don't worry. Yeah.
So, but they crash into Forbidden Planet, which was my comic book store. So it's just it's like cool to see all these set pieces like that you're very familiar with, but with kind of a magical twist. And but this series reminds me of home, and like I first picked it up when I was like 14 years old, and I'm still reading it now, like over a decade. Over a decade.
Do you know what? All three books you've chosen sound great, but this is the one I think that's won me over in first. I think I definitely like the sound of this.
Dude, I mean, like the first book, I mean, since it's like for young adults, so the first book you would get through so quickly. It's quite an easy read, and especially the first one is particularly special, like introducing you to the world. And I think it's such a unique concept. Like there are magic stories before, but the way these sorcerers are and the way these powers have evolved and how they begun, I think it's very unique. And I would say good luck with the names in this series. Everyone has really weird names. Scudery Pleasant is not the most strange name in this book. But I just remember the first time reading it as a kid and just being blown away by it. And it is the one book that I love recommending to people, and then almost watching them read it over their shoulder, going like, have you gotten to this part yet? Do you know this? Like it's I recommended it to my childhood best friend, and now it's like almost like become like an integral part of our friendship. But I just remember her reading it basically in study hall, and every now and then she would just like turn the page and look up and go, wait, what?
And that's the thing, isn't it? When you recommend something to someone that you really enjoy, you just so hope that they enjoy it the same, don't you? Because you just don't want to see that disappointment in their face or something. You really hope that they get it too.
I have to say, I don't have many talents, but one of them is recommending good books. I am very good at recommending books.
Well, you've sold me. I am going to check this one out, definitely. So did you have some honorary mentions for this category?
I mean, yes. I mean, I've already talked about this for quite a long time. We can move on.
I was actually thinking let's list them off. We probably won't go into depth, but let's.
Well, I mean, the first one I don't think needs any explanation. One that I had written down was Jurassic Park.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I read
Love that
as
book.
a kid. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely brilliant. Another one that I recently read was Red Rising, which is very polarizing in the book community, but I absolutely adored it. It's kind of like a battle royale kind of story with a lot of plot twist. So those were my two. I kept it to two honorable mentions because I didn't want to like go overboard.
And actually, do you know what? Jurassic Park, what a shout that is. We were discussing it in the chat today. I'm a bit older than some of you. And I remember when the film came out, I was obsessed with it. And I remember buying the book and then being obsessed with that. And that was probably one of the books that really kicked off. I'd always been interested. I'd always been a reader since a young toddler. But that was, I think, the book that really got me into reading books properly. And Michael Crichton was another one where I think I then bought all his books. That was it. And that's where that kind of almost addiction to collecting sort of kicked in, was his stories. Yeah,
it's one of the ones where I love the book and the movie equally, and it could have been in either of these categories, but I thought I would say some lesser known ones. But Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Right. Well, I could talk to you about this all night, and I feel we probably could, but I am going to move us on. I'm going to move us
we've
on.
got a long list.
Yeah, yeah. I I am going to let's move on to TV shows.
Also difficult, but
Yeah.
I kept trying to remind myself of the premise, like not favorite, like
Yeah.
relive. So I've got no. I was gonna say all fantasy, but not all fantasy this time. So the first one that I've got, and I hate that I have to specify now the difference: Avatar: The Last Airbender animated.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Not talking about that live action shit here. Um, but Avatar, in my opinion, is perfection. It is the definition of perfect, which is why it's so confusing why they thought they could remake it. That's a different podcast. But anyway, yeah, to me, Avatar is perfection. One thing that I generally really appreciate from from a TV show is, it's like almost obvious to say, but effort and then trusting your audience. And the fact that they like took the time to script this story from all 3 seasons, from the very start, before they actually started telling the story, so they had it all figured out how it was going to go. And you can tell that's something that was set up in season 1 is going to pay off in season 3. You can tell like this story is just so perfectly crafted. In my opinion, there is not a single bad episode. There's one really scary episode that I do have to skip because I am a fraidy cat. But in my opinion, I don't think there's a single bad episode of this show. The characters are just brilliant. The animation is absolutely gorgeous. I don't think I can say something that hasn't been said about this show. I mean, but in my opinion, this is the, like, animated or normal, this is the one of the best TV shows of all time.
Wow. And I'm going to have to say I'm ashamed. It's one of the shows I've not got round to yet. It's not that I don't want to. It's just I am terrible. I've actually started doing some TV shows. I mean, you mentioned Black Mirror on my podcast just because it gives me a reason to go and make sure I'm watching shows.
Uh, Avatar is another one where when someone starts it for the first time, I'm like looking over their shoulder because you think it's like it's just a kids show. But then the story beats hit so hard, and I think you get more out of it watching it as an adult than as a kid.
Yeah, and there's been films as well, right? So I know you said the live action show, but has there been films?
Oh, there's been one film, but
One
that's
film.
worse than the live action.
Really? Wow.
Oh yeah. It's by M. Night Shyamalan, and he did not get the point of the TV show ever. No, yeah, at least the Netflix adaptation is better than the movie one. But I mean, I haven't properly seen a Netflix adaptation, but every single like clip I see of this, I'm like, no, I hate this. Like, I'm not putting myself through this.
No, that's fair enough. And the thing is, why do you have to? Like I said, the animations, there are a number of shows where, they are animated, but they're brilliant. And it's like, just because something's animated, some people will probably turn their nose up at it because of that.
It's such a pet peeve of mine. It's such a pet peeve of mine that people dismiss something just because it's animated. But it's just some of the best shows in recent years that have come out have been animated.
Yeah.
And like Arcane is one of them that could have been on this list, but it's just, and that's not a kids show at all. Also, like so many animated like films as well, and there are people like where they're like, animation is not for kids.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Is people, if you're like that, you're missing out on a lot of good stuff. So sort it out. And something else I do want to say is I'm so glad that I started this podcast, this type of episode, because I would hate to be, I said it to Colin on the last episode, I'd hate to be where you are having to come up with the answers. So this is great for me, and it gives me, I'm getting a new watch list, I'm getting a new read list, so it's great for me. So
I was about to say, is this just for us to give you like a watch list? And
and it is funny, I mean, in the chat you do shout out, you shouted out a couple of other programs for me to get into, so I appreciate that. So I'm thinking, I'll make a note of that.
I consume a lot of media.
That's a good thing. Well, it's a good thing for me. Right. So what's your second show?
The second one is an anime, and it's my favorite anime. And that is a little show called Nana. And it falls under because, anime can have so many different genres. This one falls under the slice of life genre. So for one, it's not fantasy. And it is such a simple story, The story is that two girls meet on a train to Tokyo, both called Nana, both going to Tokyo for very different reasons. One is there to be like trying to be independent, the other one is moving for her boyfriend. And it's another show about like love and connection and the power of platonic love. The animation is absolutely gorgeous. I love the art style. I love the person, the animation studio who did this. They did some of my other favorites that would have been on this list as well if I didn't have to limit myself to three. And the stories, it sounds so simple, but it is so powerful. And I know I'm not on my own in this because, especially the main, because they're both called Nana, so one of them gets the nickname. Nana means in Japanese 7, and then the other one gets the nickname Hachi, which is Japanese for 8. But the main character Nana, I think she's an icon and an inspiration to so many of us. She's also one of the characters that I cosplay. And it's really weird because I've had so many different experiences cosplaying her. I cosplayed her in London. I got recognized by like 2 people, which is fine. I don't do it to get recognized. I cosplayed her in Portugal thinking the same thing. And before I even set foot into the convention center, I got cried on, which
Really? Wow.
it happens. It happens. People get very emotional around
Yeah.
characters and
Yeah.
cosplayers. But it was just, yeah, this character means so much. And it's just the parallels of these 2 girl stories, because one builds her entire identity around a man and the relationship she's in, and like her relationship with her boyfriend is her personality, while the other one is the complete opposite, where she's like, I don't need a man to define myself, I'm going to stand on my own, I don't need anyone, which is also quite toxic mentality. And it's just like them trying to find this common balance between each other. And it's just a roller coaster of emotion that can have you like crying in some episodes and then like laughing nonstop in others. It's difficult to describe, but every time I like say the anime to someone, they like look it up and they're like, oh no, and then they like watch 2 episodes and then they call me in tears.
But,
Like it's one of those.
what I was going to say is, if anyone, if there are media companies listening, you're doing a fantastic job selling these things. No, honestly. And the other little nugget there was, you go to conventions and you cosplay. Now, I haven't been since COVID, and not because of COVID, but since COVID, I've not been. I used to go to a lot of the conventions, and I never cosplayed. I just don't have the imagination or the patience to put the costume together. But I think it's fascinating seeing the people that go, and the randomness of some of the characters. I mean, there's a lot I don't know, but I just love the detail and the commitment that people do. So it's something you do or you have done regularly.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's a large financial commitment. So when I lived in the UK, I did MCM, the summer one, every
Yeah.
year when I lived in the UK. And then I've been to one here in Portugal as well. I try to do it more often. It's just, well, Portugal only has 2 in the entire year, not as many as in the UK. And then in the UK, I was a broke student. So like,
We might have bumped into each other. You never know.
yeah, if you were at MCM London between
Yeah.
well, 2019 was my last one. So I did 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016.
Yeah, probably the years I went. Like anything, I went to one and that was it. I did them like 2 or 3 a year for about 3 or 4 years. I burnt out, because I just got into it. I thought they were great.
I love them.
It's given me another category I'm going to add right at the end now. So,
Oh.
so I'll just make sure I write that down. So your third TV show.
So my third TV show, this one kept switching. Like ever since we agreed to do this episode, this one, the third spot kept changing. And then I only a few minutes before like re-recording it, I changed that because again, for this whole concept of forgetting and watching it again, because I sadly cannot watch this show anymore. But because I was so pissed off by it, Game of Thrones.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you. Yeah.
I tried because the first 4 seasons are phenomenal television.
Yes,
they are amazing. But now every time I start it, I'm just like reminded of how it ends. And it's, as something I said about effort, it's just by the final season, they have put so much low effort into it. They completely just were pulling stuff out of thin air. Then there was the whole thing with like the coffee cups in the shot and the water bottles. I've only personally ever worked on one film set, so I'm by no means an expert, but I know how many people are on a film set. So how many people have to stare at this one scene, and the fact that no one noticed that there was a Starbucks coffee cup in the frame just shows that they were phoning it in. But it's so sad because the first few seasons are just one of the best,
Incredible. It really is.
incredible television and incredible fantasy, and like takes every single thing that I like about a story, and yeah, ruined forever.
Yeah, I think Colin may have said this, and I know it's a show because I absolutely echo everything you said, but I would still, so there are people that say that haven't seen it say, well, I'm not going to watch it now. I would say, please do, just don't watch the last season
Yeah.
at most, because the penultimate season, there's a cliffhanger, but that feels like that's a perfect end of season cliffhanger type thing. Just don't watch that final season. But definitely, as you said, at least the first four, some of the best TV. For me, I said it before, it's one of the last few genuine, you watch it one night and you're talking about it at work or with your friends the next day. That it's the last type of that show, I think.
I want to say the last type because we've got House of the Dragon, which I'm so
Oh, do
excited
you know
for
what? I've not
season 2.
seen. I've not seen. I've not
See,
seen.
I was saying I was heartbroken, completely gave up on Game of Thrones, but then I heard Matt Smith was cast, and I have to see everything that Matt Smith is
So you'd
in.
recommend it then, yeah?
House of the Dragon is phenomenal. House of the Dragon is really, really good, and I hope they keep the momentum for season 2. But like season 1 did have those like Game of Thrones beats, and then I think the other one that would fall into that category is The Last of Us,
Okay,
which
yeah.
I think also falls to like proper television, but I would say Last of Us is sci-fi, not fantasy.
Yeah, The Last of Us, they do an incredible job of showing a relationship between the two leads, right? And I think that's what that show does really, really well, because that's not an easy thing to get right. And I've forgotten the name from Game of Thrones as well. So there's the other link there.
Oh, Bella Ramsey
That's it. Yes. Yeah.
and Pedro Pascal. They're both Game of Thrones, which
Oh, that's true, actually.
yeah, I
Yes,
completely
of
forget
course,
that
yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Oh, what isn't Pedro Pascal in at the moment, I think. So it feels like. Okay. Again, another great pick there. So honorable mentions?
Honorable mentions, I have my favorite childhood show, Teen Titans, down. I love that show. And for a kid's show, it had some very like, oh my God, plot twists.
Yes, yeah.
Then I have season 1 of Jessica Jones. I still think that is phenomenal television.
Yes.
I really hope she's coming back because she was such a good character. And then like this one was my number 3 slot before I replaced it with Game of Thrones, and that is also only season 1 because season 2 is dead to me, but the comedy series Flight of the Conchords.
Do you know what? Somebody else, not on this yet, somebody else has said that and recommended it to me, and I've not seen it yet either.
It's technically a musical show, so do you like funny songs?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm all in for that. Yeah.
And people from New Zealand. That is basically the joke. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I've heard a lot of good things. I've seen clips. It's just, again, it's one of those shows that it felt like it's passed me by and the moment's gone. But not many people talk about it now. But it's funny that actually, I think you're the third person within about 2 weeks. So it's like fate is telling me that I've got to watch this now.
It's so good. It's so funny. And it's just makes me laugh every single time I watch it. Completely ignore season 2, but season 1 is really, really good. It's just fun. It's
I love
really
that.
fun.
I love that. It's dead to me. There is no season 2. There is only season 1. I love that. Sorry, did you have more honourable mentions or was that?
No, I'll limit myself.
Okay. What we'll do, we'll stick in and around the same area. So we'll move on to movies now.
Yeah, movies was, again, a difficult one. I'm one of those people where someone asks, what's your favorite movie? And I'll just give you my top 10. Like, it's so difficult for me to choose. So I'm going to do it differently this time. I'm going to say all of them, and then we can get into them.
Okay.
So first one I have down is Spirited Away. Then the second one, my favorite Wes Anderson, Moonrise Kingdom. And then I want to say I'm kind of cheating with this, but I think you have to watch these simultaneously, Infinity War / Endgame.
Right, okay.
So like Spirited Away was my first Miyazaki movie that I saw. And this shows how much of an impact this movie had on me because I saw it in German, which nothing sounds good in German, which also makes this one of the like more unique experiences that I want to really live because I saw it in cinema with my German grandmother And this was, in a way, almost very out of character for her. Like, she never did something like that, like decided to bring us to the movie. And she never did something like bring us, like, recently talking about this with my mom, we were actually trying to figure out how she even knew about this, because it's, at the time, now Studio Ghibli is a very big thing, but this came out when I was around 8 years old. This was still fairly niche. And I think she once just read it in a newspaper and decided, I'll take the grandkids to that. But the movie itself is just so unbelievably special, and not just, of course, because it's Studio Ghibli, gorgeous, but one thing I found about this movie, I saw it at such a young age, but the values and morals that it had, I carried with me till adulthood. And I didn't realize until I rewatched the movie as an adult. And in a way, that was almost watching it again without having hardly any previous memory of it. I just had like few like images of it. But like, I was like, oh, that's where I got that from, or that's where. And I think one of the reasons this impacts me so much, the story follows a little girl who gets separated from her parents, but it starts off with her moving to a new place. And I'm an expat. I know that feeling so well. And I, around the same time, moved from Brussels to Ireland when I was only 5 years old. And I just remember that feeling. And just, she even has like these flowers in her hand where, like, I think like a previous like school friend or something wrote like a little note, stay in touch, and something like that. And as an adult, you kind of know that like that school friend from 6 years old is gonna fall beneath the cracks, and like seeing that as an adult. But like I had that as well, so that's why it's impacts. But it's, yeah, and just this girl trying to find her agency, and her, like, it's, there's so many beautiful scenes on it. There's just one scene that I think everyone who's seen the movie knows what I mean, the train scene. I cannot even describe it because it is just so beautiful. There's no dialogue, there's nothing. You just sit in the moment of this scene. Yeah, and there are also some scary parts. I did this thing when I was little and we went to the cinema, and I was scared I would hide underneath the cinema seats. And I remember doing that a lot during this movie. But even like seeing this movie first time at 8 years old, being absolutely terrified, but still wanting to see it again, kind of shows the impact of this movie.
I didn't realize it was out. So did they recently do a new version of it? Or am I mixing that up with something? Maybe.
Hayao Miyazaki did a new one called The Boy and the Heron. Just went out.
Maybe. Oh, right. I think that's what maybe I'm confusing it with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's done quite a few. Like, to promote another PodPack member, Luke is currently going through all of the filmography.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Just waiting for him to get to Spirited Away. Once again, I'm like that over the shoulder moment. Like, but
I'll get him on then when he's done that. We'll see what his if it features in his top 3. But okay, yeah, again, and that's an animated one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Studio Ghibli. Yeah.
It's Studio Ghibli. It's animated. It's anime, technically, but it's just gorgeous. The animation is absolutely beautiful, and yeah, it's just so powerful. And I think everyone has that one Studio Ghibli movie, and for me, I'm not sure if it's because it's the first one I saw, but yeah, and Spirited Away is the one when someone asks me like, what's your favorite movie, and I can only choose one, it will be Spirited Away.
Okay, excellent. And what was the middle one? The Wes Anderson film, was it?
Moonrise Kingdom. So Moonrise Kingdom.
Not one I've seen. Yeah, not one I'm aware of either. Yeah. Oh, I think we're falling out here, people. I think we're falling out. No, she turned the camera off. No, don't go. Come back.
Oh, Moonrise Kingdom is another one. It's such a beautiful story. This is one where I went into it not ever seeing a Wes Anderson movie before. I saw it on a plane on the way from like flying back from Hungary. So I generally did not expect anything of it. I basically just turned it on because I was bored. And then this movie, it again hits me so strong. It's about a boy and a girl who run away from home and try to start their own little like kingdom in the woods, and it's just so beautiful. But because it's Wes Anderson, it's just so funny. There are like some proper laugh out moments in it, and to me this is this is the best Wes Anderson. I haven't seen Asteroid City yet, but other than that, I'm quite up to date with his filmography. And this one is my favorite one. It's just not just that the costume designing is great. I have a fashion background, so costume design is something that always will win me over.
Yeah.
The costume design, the color palette, the music, and obviously it has the panning shots, the what Wes Anderson is known for, but like the story of like just these two kids like just running away from the name of love, I think is just so cute, and I love it so much, and I highly recommend it. If you just want a cozy night in front of the
It's
TV,
on the list. It's on the list.
watch Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah, that's the thing, because we're in my house. I will generally watch anything, but my wife, she doesn't like to watch anything that's sad or anything like that. Or if we know going into it that it's intentionally is going to be sad. So if it's upbeat, or if it's, if there's a feel good film, yeah.
No, I would say this is a great date night movie. I think.
Okay, I'll add it. I'll add it. And just again, because I'm looking at the time. I mean, your final two.
Yeah, Infinity War and Endgame. I mean, the one I think the reason I have this on the list is I saw these at the midnight showing. So like only with absolute super fans. And I think that heightens the experience of these movies because everyone just like is like diehard Marvel fan. But I just remember the last 10 minutes of Infinity War, everyone just sitting there in complete silence and just no one like saying anything.
Yeah.
And that was like amazing. And then Endgame, after Endgame, honestly, this was the first time I had the thought where I went, my brain is full. I cannot take in any more media. My brain is full. It's done. Like that was it.
Yeah, those. I mean, I was a massive Marvel fan, especially the first few phases. I'm not saying that they're not as good now. I think I definitely got burnt out because before Endgame, I then rewatched them all again. But for me, I think what it is Infinity Wars and Endgame. It was the perfect culmination of the previous 10 years. And I've said that before. And I think that's why, for me, almost if it finished there, I wouldn't be upset because
Same.
Perfection. And I think Endgame is the one film I'm normally I'm quite grouchy. I like my cinemas to be silent when we watch the film, but that was the one that I honestly didn't mind because I felt the excitement. I'm not necessarily one to shout out at certain moments, but when people did, I was like, yes, yeah, you go for it.
When Captain America caught Mjolnir, I literally screamed. I was one of those ones who was literally standing up going, fuck yeah! Like
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I could say much more other than it's a perfect choice. And I'll cast it as one film because it feels like it should be. Let's split into two. Are you still kind of watching all the newer ones, or?
I have to say I'm also like suffering from fatigue, but I am still like with it. I mean, I did love Spider-Man Homecoming. That was another like that experience was special because I've seen every single Spider-Man movie in a different country. Just kind of shows the my expat journey. But that was like the first one I saw in here in Portugal, and the cinema, like it was the first time since then the cinema has never been crowded. So even though it wasn't a midnight showing, I had that excitement of a midnight showing, so that like adds to the movie. And then I really liked The Marvels. I thought it was a very fun film. I mean, it had cats. You can always win me over with cats. I think it got bashed to senselessly. I think it's a very good. I love Captain Marvel and The Marvels. I think that those are my two like comfort movies when it comes to Marvel. So yeah, on the TV side, I've lost track.
Do you know what? That's probably what it is. I think when the TV shows then started creeping in, I think that's then when it felt a bit much, maybe. Again, look, if you enjoy it, absolutely fair play. I'm not going to say you don't, but I think, it felt like hard work then for me, I think, with the shows.
Yeah. But at the same time, Vision was amazing. It's just like, you're like, I'm done with these Marvel shows. And then they give you something like that. And you're like, oh.
Actually, do you know what? I really did like WandaVision, but I actually preferred the first half where it was doing the parodies of the TV shows. I really like that, and I found that a fascinating element to it. Right, honourable mentions here?
Oh, the only one I had written down and was one of my top three is The Dark Knight. Like,
okay, good
it was
film.
before I replaced it with Marvel. For me, The Dark Knight, that's in my opinion also a flawless film.
Okay, but it's an honourable mention, so we're
It's
going
an
to move
honourable
on.
mention. Move on.
Move on.
I'm conscious about time.
No, it's fine. We've got time. Going to move on to something a bit different now. And this is the first time I've featured this, I think. So 1 to 3 food items.
Yeah, so I went for like dinner experiences that
Okay.
like I interpreted that I probably won't ever have again. So the first time was like in a small restaurant in Belfast. The first time we went to Belfast, and this restaurant has shut down since. And next to this, all I have written is tentacles and duck. Because I generally cannot remember because it was crispy octopus or crispy squid, but whatever it was, it still was one of the best foods that I have ever eaten.
Wow, okay.
And then the duck itself was perfect. And when I heard that this restaurant, I think it even had a Michelin star or something, it was very well rated. And when it shut down, I got very upset. And then another one, sorry, jumping. I've got written down Malta / banoffee pie. So we were in Malta with my family, and the restaurant we wanted to go to was actually closed. So we stumbled across this restaurant, and it's always a good sign when they have like a limited menu where it's like you like targeted.
Yeah.
I cannot remember what else I ate, but I still dream about this banoffee pie to this day.
Nice.
It was that
Nice.
good.
Nice.
And for my final one, I went a bit sentimental, and I just wrote my grandmother's chicken soup.
And why not? Why not?
Yeah.
And again, chicken soup is really nice comfort food, right?
Especially Hungarian style. Like, Hungarian cooking, in my opinion, is the best cooking in the world. But yeah, that one was my childhood.
I mean, I like my food as well, and we do talk a lot about food, I think, in PodPack chat. There is just something about it, and like you said, the randomness. So yeah, at one place it was just the banoffee pie, and it's funny, isn't it, how certain things stick in our mind.
And I don't think I'll ever have that banoffee pie again because we found this place by accident.
Yeah.
So I don't like it's lost. So I would love to relive this banoffee pie again. It was, oh yeah.
All right, well, let's move on. Let's not relive that difficult moment that you're not going to be able to remember. But was that Malta? You said
Malta, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're in Malta and you know a place that does really good banoffee pie, get in touch so we can pass it on to Marie. If you ship it overseas, even better. So, honourable mentions here or not?
No.
No. Okay. I wouldn't have thought so in food. Right. Let's move on to. Let's do albums or artists.
Oh, this one's so hard. I'm sorry. This is gonna be maybe another long one. I feel weird saying I'm a music lover, but there are people out there who just don't listen to music, which I find really strange.
Yeah, I love my music.
Yeah, and I love a good album. And the way I categorize this is albums that you can listen to without pressing skip.
Yeah.
But also, if someone would press the shuffle button, it would be penalty of death. Because an album, like each song should flow into the next one. It should be also perfect. Yeah. So that's how I categorize this. And this was really, really hard. So the first one I have down is by one of my favorite bands. It was split between two of them, but I went with their most recent one. So it's from a band called Sleep Token, and it's their album Take Me Back to Eden. It came out last year, and it's just phenomenal. I don't know how to describe it. Sleep Token falls under the genre of metal, but I wouldn't call it metal. Like under Spotify, you would find it under metal. I would say it's alternative metal. Some critics have said it's progressive metal because they just reinvent the genre every single time. But it's one of those where each song flows perfectly into the next. Every time I re-listen to this album, I have a new favorite song. It's like I cannot make up my mind which one's better, which one's good. And it's one of those ones where you just probably sit and listen and let the music and the feelings like wash over you. And for me, that is Sleep Token. And yeah, the opening song of the album, Chokehold, was probably one of my favorite songs that came out in the last year. I don't know. It's just a powerhouse of an album.
It's not one I know, but with music, I do love getting straight onto Spotify or something or YouTube when somebody says something, because I'm not, nowadays I'm not an expert and I'm not saying that, but growing up, music was my thing. Yeah, I was just always listening to albums. And absolutely what you said, I've said it before, I think in the modern day, most people people have lost the art of listening to an album. And not every album does it, but like you said, there's a reason why there's 11 tracks in that order
Hmm.
by that artist. And like you said, the way it slips into it and, maybe builds up to a crescendo or fades out to a mellow. And yeah, absolutely. For me, I have to listen to albums. Yeah.
I mean, I would be curious what you think. Sleep Token is not for everyone. I have to admit about that, but I find them absolutely amazing. And it's, yeah, it's difficult to describe aside what Sleep Token actually is, but
I
like, I mean,
promise you, I will give it a listen and I'll come
yeah,
back to you. I'll
yeah,
come
Sleep
back to
Token,
you.
take me back to Eden.
Okay.
So the other album that I have, and this band could have been this whole entire list because I love them so much, and their last 3 albums, in my opinion, have been phenomenal. But I thought I would give you a range, and that is the band Ghost. And I went for their album Prequel because what makes Ghost so unique is Ghost I would describe as satanic ABBA. It's just fun with just a touch of Satan in there. It's but the songs are upbeat, and what they it's the same situation with Sleep Token as well. All of the band members wear masks and they all have different identities, and what comes with Ghost is the frontman, even though it's the same singer, the frontman always changes. And for this era, the reason I chose this album out of all the other ones, it's because it's my favorite frontman. He's called the Cardinal, and he's just this weird character who just loves to dance. And I thought it was that's my favorite era of this band. But it also has, in my opinion, the best opener of Ghost albums. I think Rats is a phenomenal opener, and it also has my favorite Ghost song on it, Life Eternal. And it's a fun, like,
Yeah.
Ghost is fun.
All I've got in my head is you've coined the term satanic ABBA as a genre, so I'm going to look for that on Spotify. Yeah, as a genre. Yeah.
I mean, they also are Swedish, so it's not completely out there.
When I go to HMV next time, can you put me to the satanic ABBA section, please? Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who thought about this. If you type
It's
in
a great
satanic ABBA, I
summary.
think this will come up.
I love it. Honestly, I love it. Right. And do you know what? I'm racking my brain. I feel like, again, in the last week, that's not the first time I've heard them mentioned either. And I'm trying to rack my brain. So yeah, again, sounds up my street, that one. So I'll give that a listen too.
Yeah. And then I once again, I had a completely different one written down for number 3, but then I just recently listened to this album, and we're completely shifting genres. We're going over to country music.
Oh wow.
And that is Pony by Orville Peck. And this was not intentional, but all of my picks here don't show their face. So they're all mystery figures. Not intentional, but it just happened. But yeah, this one is classic country. It's very Johnny Cash-esque, but I think Orville has such a powerful voice, and it's just one of those voices that just washes over you, and you just like sit and let, because of course country music has a lot of feelings behind it as well. Just let the feelings hit. So I think this is also a phenomenal album.
Are you will you listen to any genre, or is there specific ones? Do you not like necessarily some?
I mean, I tend to avoid pop.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I don't really like pop. For me, it is my top genres are rock, soft alternative metal. I don't like hard metal, power metal, and country. My Spotify doesn't really know what to do with me because I do genre hop quite a bit.
The country probably throws the algorithm off.
Yeah, my weekly playlist is always very entertaining because it's sometimes like hard metal, and then they just throw in like a country song in there trying to please me.
Because that was always the thing with me growing up. Other than heavy metal, like really hard metal, I will listen to most. But that just meant you were spending your money on everything. It's great having a wide taste, but it's also painful on the wallet.
It is. Thank God for like now streaming platforms. I say Spotify is the one app I cannot live without.
There you go.
I use it on a daily basis.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Sponsorship incoming then. Come on. Yeah.
I mean, considering we use Spotify for podcasters, that wouldn't be such a
there you
bad.
go. There you go. Sort it out, Spotify. Come on. Right. So, honourable mentions here, or?
Yes. I mean, I felt weird not having this on the list because they're the kings of putting together a great album, and that is Pink Floyd.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I had "Wish You Were Here" on it because that is my favorite Pink Floyd album.
Wow. What an album for an honourable mention. Yeah.
No, it shows. Once again, I thought, oh, Pink Floyd might be a bit too obvious.
Yeah, imagine if we'd have started with the honourable mentions first. Some people might have just switched off there. No. I mean, Pink Floyd.
I mean,
I'd say even if you don't like them, I think you can't deny the impact they had as well,
yeah.
right? It's incredible. It's
they're phenomenal, and I mean, that is really one where it's penalty of death if someone presses shuffle. Like,
I love that. I love that little caveat. Yeah.
Why? Like because like it's even singles. Like no, there's no such thing as a Pink Floyd single. You cannot listen to just one Pink Floyd song. You have to listen to the whole album.
And it's very much like a concept album, isn't it? That is one, like you said, where it is a whole story that you're hearing. Okay, that's a phenomenal choice. I might just for this one say you could have 4, so it becomes a proper mention. There, I've broken a rule. It's not happening again, right? Staying in and around the same world, I've said to you gigs or shows, and that could also be theatre. So, you know, 'cause not everyone goes to gigs or likes gigs. Not everyone likes musicals. Yeah, I'll let you do what you want. And that probably made it difficult opening it up that much.
Yeah, well, see, I've got 1 gig down and then 3 shows written down because I'm a musical theater nerd. Because I actually only started going to gigs last year. So I've only ever been to 1 gig in my life, which is Battle Beast, which is a power metal band. And they are phenomenal live. I highly recommend them. They're currently touring the UK, but it's proper power metal. And yeah, this was my first gig. I went to it on my own. And I was a bit worried I would die in a mosh pit, but thank God, like the crowd was really chill and it was just a lovely evening. The unfortunate situation is like many bands just forget about Portugal and don't come here. So unfortunately, my list
you
is
mentioned that
quite limited.
Yeah,
they always just stop at Spain and then we're just like, hello.
Yeah, it's not that much further. Come on. Yeah.
Exactly. So I would like to go to more gigs, but haven't had the opportunity.
Yeah, that is a little unfair. Yeah, music promoters sort it out. Come on, we're trying to sort everyone out. We're right in the world here. Yeah. So, did you say it was in musical theatre?
Funnily enough, yes, I was like a big musical theatre nerd. However, I don't have a single I have 1 honorable mention musical,
okay.
But other than that, none of these are musicals. 2 of them are dance.
So tell you what, let's hear the honourable mention then. You could go into your pick. What was that?
Hamilton.
Okay, not one I've seen yet.
See, I saw it in London. I saw it like a month after it opened. And it's still going on in London. I highly recommend it. It's a classic for a reason.
I'm going to say, I'll put it out there. I do love musical. I do love the shows. You know, it is something I do really get caught up in the production. So yeah, absolutely. But it's not I'm not being grilled here. It's back over to you.
Right. Yeah. As I said, and other than that, it's 2 dance and 1 play. So
okay.
I have 1 production, a ballet production, Swan Lake, but it's Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake. So Matthew Bourne is we're getting to the word that I can never say. Choreographer? I cannot say it. 10 plus, yes, 10 plus years of ballet, and I cannot say it. I'm just gonna go with dance captain.
Okay, I've had satanic hammer and dance captain. This is brilliant.
So what he does is he takes like classic ballets and kind of flips them on his head, and he does a version of Swan Lake where the swans, which are in the classic ballet, played by women, but here they're played by men. And I saw this live in Dublin, and it was just it was an incredible show and an incredible production, and I would love to see more from Matthew Bourne. But the reason I would like to see this particular show again with this particular cast, the lead who played the prince had the most perfect behind that I still think about it to this day.
So like the banoffee pie. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. You've got to have a reason, right? And that's a valid reason.
I mean, because this is a touring production. You can see it's, but I don't think I will see this cast ever again. So yeah. But also, it's my favorite version. I've seen Swan Lake so many times. I've seen it. I've seen the classic ballet. I had it on VHS. I've seen the Barbie version, but this one is my favorite. I think it's a more accurate representation because, let's face it, swans are vicious, not delicate beasts. Like they're. And then I have a play written down, which is John Gabriel Borkman by Heinrich Isben. The play itself is not very special, to be honest. I'm not a very big fan of Isben. I studied him in school and I'm a bit scarred. But what made this production so special, it starred the amazing late Alan Rickman.
Wow.
And
Okay.
the fact that I could see him live on stage, not just Alan Rickman, he was accompanied by the phenomenal Fiona Shaw. And that was just a amazing production. And yeah, I am like, it's one of those where I'm like, I'm so lucky I got to see that man perform live. A powerhouse of a talent.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Spoilers for the play, he does die in the end, but then I feel like I had the full Alan Rickman experience.
Yeah, there are certain people like that. And again, sorry, I know I'm jumping in here, but
no.
When it comes to music, there's one person I'm the same with, and I won't. I'll tell you another time, but I won't go into the randomness of this. I got to see in London Pavarotti, and that always live on in my mind. You know, it's one of the first, and this was about 24, 25 years ago, but I can remember it vividly. And recently, the person for that, and I've now seen him twice, is Andrea Bocelli.
Ooh.
We saw him at the O2. We've seen it twice because about 20 years ago, when I met my wife, my girlfriend, then I wanted to go see him. He was in London, and she wanted to do something else. And of course, I said, "All right, let's go do something else." I wanted to do the right thing. And then I don't think he came to London or came to England for years. And so I've now seen him twice in 3 years, and I will see him again. My God, I love that guy. So yeah, it's going back to one of those things. Is I like them, I like the music. I obviously like him, but for me, it was about seeing him while I can.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Back over to you.
No, it's all right. Yeah. And then finally for shows, I honestly, all I have written down is unknown/red sofa. To give a bit of context to this, my aunt worked for the National Dance Theatre in Hungary for the longest time. And as a result, I got to see quite a lot of productions, some great, some bad. But this one will always stand in my memory. And the reason for this is like, so we went into this not knowing anything about it. The production starts and all you see on stage is a red 3-seater sofa. And the fact that I mentioned 3-seater is kind of important. And it's a modern dance piece. So the piece starts with a guy only wearing boxer shorts dancing. It was like this like almost pop and lock contortion style dance that was very in at the time. He's joined by a woman. The woman passes out on the sofa. The guy keeps dancing. The music stops. The woman wakes up, walks to the guy, and just pulls off his trousers. And he's wearing nothing underneath. And in that moment, the entire theater just went, yeah. And to add to this memory, I saw this with my family, and my aunt was sitting next to me, and my aunt just like lightly patted my hand. And it just to say it escalated from there to the point where no one was wearing clothes on stage. And the entire, after I kind of like read up about it, the entire production was about relationships, the different types of relationships, and the different situations you could find yourself in. So let's just say there were group scenes as well. So
I love the group scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there was a 3-way. Anyway, 3-seater sofa. But minus that, to this day, this was still one of the best dance productions I have ever seen. And not just the dancers were incredibly talented, the music, the lighting, even though I'm guessing that they looked nude. I'm guessing they were almost completely nude. But because of the lighting, it wasn't like it was like always like teased, suggestive in your face. But it was just such a special production. And as I said, I have no idea what this was. So I'll probably will never ever see it again. And it was a very short piece, and I just remember leaving it and my dad like turning to my aunt going, "And this wasn't 18 plus?" Because I think I was around 16 at the time, but it was, in my opinion, still a phenomenal piece.
So, did you know going into it was going to be like that?
No,
You didn't?
no one knew.
Okay. Oh,
no one knew.
Right.
That's why the thing, the entire theater almost like collectively like.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, she said that.
Yeah, no one knew. My aunt didn't know. I think the only person who knew was the person who ran the dance theater company. But I think because he's a friend of ours, he kind of just, I don't know, wanted to mess with us a bit. But yeah, no one knew about this.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a production like this since. So
we'll shortly move on. We've got 2 more things, and I've got one bonus one. But again, you just reminded me last year or the year before, and this is where I do a dreadful job of remembering things. My wife, she remembers everything. We saw it's by Punch Drunk, and so they do like the immersive theatre show around you. So they've got their own building in London, and can't remember. I think it was called Lost City or something like that. But it's set in like the ancient Greece and Athens and Troy, is it?
Oh yeah.
And you're walking around, and basically they encourage you. So you've got the sets, and anything you see, you can go in. So if there's like little rooms or one bit, you've got like, it was supposed to be like the battlefield, and you've got the tents. You could go into the tents, and if nothing's bolted down, you could pick it up, the props, and look at it. But at certain points, they're telling the story of like the fall of Troy with dancers around you. Oh, and the other weird thing is you all had to wear these masks like masquerade, but everyone had the same thing. So it's really odd when you're walking around, just seeing no faces, just seeing these masks. But then at some points, the dancers, both male and female, they will get fully nude. And there's simulated murder, there's simulated sex, and some part you might be, if you're standing in the wrong bit of that room, they won't push you out the way. They will just, wherever you are, it will happen around you. And then all you can see are these eyeballs behind these masks, like flitting around, And it's just the most surreal thing, just seeing these faceless people and then having these things happen in front of you. But yeah.
Sounds like an incredible experience, but also a very awkward one at the same time.
It really is. It really is a good experience. And the other thing is, as you go in, they bag up your phone and zip lock it up. So again, there's no phones, and you can understand why now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on swiftly. So I'm going to go on to this one, and then I want to keep one specifically till the end. So 1 to 3 games. Now, I think I said to you they can be board games as well as video games. So
yeah, I mean, for this one, I only have one written down. And I think it's the same one that you and I have, and that's Mass Effect.
I was going to say, that's why I didn't want to say it at the start. I was so hoping you'd say that. I mean, an hour, 20 minutes in, that's why I left it till the end, because I probably would still be talking.
I played Mass Effect, but I played it knowing the spoilers already. And even knowing the spoilers, it's still a phenomenal game. And yeah, I'm someone who loves lore, and the Mass Effect lore is just so good.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I know we're running short on time, so we can
talk about it a bit. I mean, can't underestimate people listening in the PodPack chat. There was one morning, I don't know why it started. We started talking Mass Effect, and for about a whole day, and I can't remember, it might have been Seismic Cinema or something, sort of said, what have I walked into, or what, what overnight, what has gone on? And I've said it before, it's my favourite game.
It's just so good.
I play it every year. And so that's what I'm saying, the spoilers don't matter, because even though I know exactly all the story beats, I will play it. My wife, who's not a gamer, will sit down to watch it because the story's that good. And as you said, there is so much lore and history in it.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And even it gets you every single time the plot beats. Yeah. It's I think a classic for a reason, but it's so good. I'm actually very surprised there hasn't been a Mass Effect adaptation yet. because just the story is really good, and these characters, like you care for these characters, minus the ones in Mass Effect 3, but the you care for these characters so
Well,
much.
I think there's one character in particular, right? Isn't there?
Yeah. And he's also in 3.
Yeah, let's say him.
Garrus is my space boyfriend.
Him and his calibrations. No, he's again. It's another really cool character, and the introduction, especially in the third game, is pretty cool as well, isn't it? Sorry, no, the second game. Sorry,
the second game. Yeah.
Yeah, second game. Yeah.
I mean, you get like you experience like you have a proper crew and like people behind you. It's amazing how much you feel towards these characters, and they're just like pixels on a screen.
And I think people are going to be calling us crazy, but that's what I was going to say. Especially the second one, it feels like a heist movie almost in some sense, with characters you actually, like you said, you actually do care for. And you've all got your characters. There are some you're going to hate, but there are those, that core, that you're going to love. And each person is different, as in each person who we like. Yeah, I'll allow Garrus. He's a pretty cool character. Yeah. And what I would say is keep an eye on Chat Tsunami's pod in the future. No, I won't say more than that. Couple of months time from here, but no, top selection. So we'll go on to the last one I actually gave you, and that is, I've put here 1 to 3 life events, and what I've said is, you don't have to get personal here. They can be fun things or silly things, but yeah, what 3 events would you like to relive?
This is one of the ones where I've gotten, honestly, I couldn't think of anything.
Oh, okay.
It's I don't know. I find it very funny that you put driver's license in the example, since I don't have one. But I don't know. Maybe because I don't feel like I've achieved a lot in my 27 years on Earth. But
well, it's hardly any time at all, so that's probably an unfair question. I mean, yeah, when you get to my one, you'll say yeah.
Yeah, because like for me, like all the life events are like in the genres that we already spoke of, like the time like I saw like an amazing show or stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I honestly couldn't think of.
No,
sorry, that's a boring answer, but I talked so much in the other ones.
No, well, that's fine. Well, I've got the bonus one now that I hadn't thrown at you, so it is probably a little unfair, but I think you'll do it. Your 3 favorite characters to cosplay.
Oh yeah, because I'm broke, I haven't cosplayed that many characters. But
then who you would do then?
Well, yeah. I can say my favorite cosplay experiences, like Nana is definitely one of them.
Okay, yep.
Just also because like she's a punk rock chick, so that cosplay is almost like normal clothes, which is always very nice and comfortable.
Yeah.
Then my other one favorite is Steve Harrington from Stranger Things. He is such a fun character to cosplay. I made
random.
the bat.
I wouldn't have thought that, but random, yeah.
Well, the reason, and maybe this could be go under life events. Okay, actually, I thought of a life event.
Okay.
Because it's cosplay related.
Okay.
And that is seeing Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, at a convention.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
That's but I just thought of that one because the reason I was dressed as Steve Harrington is because we also saw David Harbour as and it was just before Stranger Things season, the latest season. Was it 4? Yeah.
4, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, but Steve is fun because everyone loves Steve, so everyone wants pictures with Steve. So those are the ones I've done, and I do a lot of anime characters, but the problem with anime is the shoes. They all wear heels, and I'm always so uncomfortable by the end of the night. So even though I love dressing up as those characters, those are very uncomfortable. So I think one that like I want to do, I really have gone into Has Been Hotel recently, which is a show that just came out, and I want to cosplay every single character on Has Been Hotel. But those are very elaborate cosplays.
Like I said, oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to gush about Has Been Hotel, how phenomenal that series is.
No, like I said earlier, I think the people that cosplay at these events are phenomenal. Some of the costumes are just amazing. I couldn't do it. And another reason is also when you see people get on the tube in their costumes, and I just don't think I could do that. I'd be so self-conscious. Oh, no, fair play to you, but I'd be so self-conscious. But
I've done it all. Like I've been on the tube. I've been almost completely naked in the parking lot of Canary Wharf because I was getting changed for a convention. Like it's I've done the like, because broke university student, done the like day going to London for the day and then back in the evening, so almost passing out on the convention floor from exhaustion in your cosplay. But no, after a while you just have no shame, but also in my opinion you forget,
Yeah.
especially if, because I try to keep my cosplays as comfortable as possible. So I sometimes generally forget, and then like people come up to me and they expect a response as that character, or they say like a quote from me from that character, and it takes me like a good 5 minutes to like realize what they're on about because I forget how I'm dressed. I'm really sorry if people have met me at a convention and I've disappointed them. I like the dressing up part, but I'm a very bad actress. Like I cannot act like the character. But
But also it's just so cool, the atmosphere at these places. So again,
yeah.
I've been to a few. So I went to Heroes and Villains. That was a short-lived one in London, but I went to that. That was actually the first one I went to. Then I went to quite a few of the MCM Comic Cons, both summer and winter. And then there's a London Film and Comic Con. I can never remember, at Olympia. I've been to a
Mhm.
few of that. And again, the wife will come with me. She's not really necessarily into that because for a number of years I was quite into all the comic books, etc. But it's just the atmosphere and people just coming up to you. Like I said, especially the cosplayers, they will just approach someone and just start chatting. And it's just a really cool, friendly atmosphere in these places.
I love it, and like the last time I went to the one in Portugal, I barely spoke any Portuguese, but even like not being able to speak Portuguese, there was almost like that language barrier was gone because you both are there because you like that thing so much.
Yeah.
And sorry, I couldn't have like an in-depth conversation, but I could understand that you love the character and the show just as much as I do, and we were all just sharing like our love of this thing. And yeah, I think conventions are amazing. It's just everyone like just sharing their nerdiness in one place. And yeah, I always have to cosplay. I feel naked if I'm at a convention and I'm not in cosplay. Like if we because we've talked about doing some PodPack booths, I'm going to be there in full costume. I don't care if it doesn't make sense to my podcast. I'm always going to be in cosplay at a convention.
Awesome. I mean, I can't remember. I've had, if it was a conversation with Luke on here or if it was with Satsu, maybe both. But we talked about the conventions, and yeah, like I said, I just think they are really cool, really fun places. You could just walk around. I mean, all the stalls, like the comic stalls, the art stalls. There's the artist corner. Often you have, yeah, you've got the guests, and even if you're not going for photo shoots with the guests, you will always see them about doing the panels. It's just I think it's just a really good fun day out. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say well, it's also a money thing, but I'm always a little intimidated by the photo shoots with the guests just because I have a feeling I'm going to cry all over them. And I haven't completely given up my hope of like working in costume design. Maybe if I'm done saving the planet, so I don't want to like one day like meet a famous actress and they're like, "Didn't you cry over me at Comic-Con?" And it's just like, yeah,
I
that sounds like me.
I'm going to be honest. I have met a few of the guests, and I don't regret it. And yes, they are quick experiences, but to be honest, for me, life is about experiences, and some of them are just so cool. I mean, I've met a couple, and I'm not going to say they were standoffish. They're just meeting faceless people, hundreds and hundreds. Sometimes the events themselves, I think, make the guests feel slightly awkward. But there's been a couple. Oh, what's his name? Is it Sean Pertwee? Was in Gotham and shows like that. He was so cool. Oh my god, I'm just forgetting everyone's name, so I'm not going to embarrass myself by going on. But yes, some of the guests are just so cool. And like I said, when you're walking around, you can hear them on the panels. And yeah, when I heard Master Chief's voice, not Master Chief, sorry, Phoenix from Gears of War, I kind of stood still because I thought I know that voice. Really, really cool event. So yeah, I am definitely down. Satsu, if you're listening to this, I know you are. Get it sorted out. We need to do a meet up at once. So yeah, delegation
I mean, we can always go to Portugal, and there are two conventions that we have.
down for that. He said he'd expense it, so it's out there now. So it's true, right? So look, thank you so much. I've enjoyed that so much, and it's been fascinating. Like I said, it's given me some things I have to listen to and watch, but this is why I do it, right? It's just a chance to get to know people and to have a fun conversation around certain things. So I hope you've enjoyed it.
No, I mean, I had fun, maybe like based on like the lengthiness of my answers. I love talking about nerdy stuff. But also, it's rare that I get to talk about theater as well and ballet, like even though it was such a big part of my life.
Well, maybe I'll get you back for a deeper dive into one of these things because I do love shows and things like that. It's one of the
Seriously,
things.
Hamilton, recommend. It's a classic for a reason, even though it's like not that old yet. But
No, yeah, okay.
it's
So I
a
think
phenomenal musical.
I think we've got a theatre show, a theatre episode coming up. Yeah, we'll do that. But absolutely, and I'll get you back for the dinner party episode as well. So,
Oh yeah, well,
yes.
I can talk about food.
Right, look, so before we go, do you just want to shout out your pod again and just where people can find you?
Sure. Hopefully I'll do a better job than this than the first time. My podcast is called Two Girls, One Reuseable Cup. You can find us on all major streaming platforms. You can connect with us on social media. We have Twitter and Instagram. If you want to connect with me personally, well, if you want to follow me, you can find me under Life on Mars. I am on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. For someone who hates social media, I'm pretty much everywhere.
And look, you've heard the last hour and a half, you've heard all the interest. So look, I mean, there's something there that you're going to be tweeting about, especially just mention Garrus. And
yeah,
that's my number one
my
hint.
Twitter.
Yeah.
If my love of Garrus.
If you want to get Marie's attention, just mention Garrus. That's all you have to do. It's like the bat signal, isn't it? It's like it is like me, I think, in the chat, whenever somebody says something about Mass Effect, I'm like, who's called? No, brilliant. Thank you again. Thank you very much. And yeah, definitely check out the pod and subscribe to it if you're not already. For me, you're listening to me, so you know where to get me. But if you want to get in touch or you want to take part in this, so Mindwipe is open to all, not just the PodPack Collective. So if you do want to take part, just search for Casting Views across all social media. Yeah, or drop me a note, drop me an email at castingviewspod@gmail.com. Other than that, Marie, thank you. And I'm going to say goodbye. And I will catch you next week.
1, 2, 3, 4. If I want your opinion, I will give it to you. Come on, check what we've got, 'cause you need it. Don't make us get a